for our application to work, we need to have some kind of backend. So we need some type of server somewhere on the cloud where we can store all of this information, where we can store the users, where we can store the jobs, where we can modify the profiles of the user. Because, of course, we're not going to do that in the local storage, correct? I mean, we'll save the user in the local storage, but we're not going to save all of this data in the local storage. And the good news is that I created such server. Now, if you're interested in learning how to set up such server yourself, I cover that in my Node course. Now, for us, the main thing that we're interested is the root URL. So this is where all our requests are going to start. Now, as a side note, if you take this URL and just go with the browser, basically there's going to be an error response. And just to demonstrate, go here, and notice you'll get back route does not exist, because all the routes will be extremely specific. So this is not just some random place where we're getting the JSON data. Everything is going to be very specific. So this will be our root URL. So this is where all our requests are going to start. And then one by one, we'll add specific endpoint. For example, for the post request, it's going to be /auth/register. And then as a result, we'll have the complete API endpoint that we can communicate with. And of course, we'll also need to provide the correct data. Now, I did not list all of the routes. In here, I just have the auth routes, because those are the ones that we'll use initially. And then eventually, once we get to the jobs, of course, I'll set up the same. So when it comes to registering the user, we want to go with root URL, and then it's going to be a post route, and it's going to have auth and register. So the full route is going to look something like this. Let me just quickly copy and paste just so you understand what I'm talking about. So let me copy here and then take this one again. This is going to be the complete URL for this particular endpoint. But I just don't want to type it each and every time, that root URL. And with Axios, of course, we'll set up the custom instance and all that. So hopefully this is clear. So for this one, I'm going to keep it here. And then, like I said, it's going to be a post route. So you cannot use get. It's not going to work. The server is not going to know what you're talking about. And the server is looking for these things. Now, if they're provided, the name, email, as well as the password, we'll get back the user with a token. And we'll use that token in a following request. Because keep in mind, all of this data is protected. Only John or whatever user I have in here can take a look at the data. And in order to guarantee that, the server is going to be looking for that token that we'll be getting back initially, whether that's register user or it's a login user. Now, I'm not going to cover all of these routes right now in this video. I think it's just a waste of time. Hopefully, it's clear how the setup is going to work as far as the request. But I do want to mention that when it comes to register, you'll have to provide a unique email. Basically, every time the user is going to register, he or she is going to have to provide a unique email. And even though it's a very cool feature, I mean, it's kind of hard when you're testing everything, when we're just setting up. Therefore, on the API, there's also another route, and that is testing user, which basically returns a dummy user object. You'll see. So the values are kind of funny, but the structure doesn't change. So we'll be able to test our setup, the register setup, because remember that is going to be basically the first route that we'll set up. So we'll be able to test everything with this testing user. And then once we have all the pieces in place, then of course we'll switch to register and login. So hopefully this is clear. I purposely made this route so we can test stuff. And no, you won't be able to follow along if, let's say, you don't change it around, if you don't start using register, because this is going to be a dummy data. When we use register or login, of course, then we'll get proper JSON web token. Hopefully that makes sense. And now let's proceed and set up the custom Axios instance where we pass in the root URL.